Today I will discuss the most common form of dysfunction or toxicity that is very much prevalent from the side of parents, especially in Indian setup. It's actually quite dysfunctional and even toxic, but it is almost culturally normal and accepted. So we all know this. You already know where this is going if you are an Indian. So there are the bunch of parents who are not ready to be parents. A lot of people have a misconception that just because you are physically or in some sense ready to be having children, that you have children. It's not right, because just because you could doesn't mean you should. This is one of those things. So these parents are not ready to be parents, emotionally, psychologically. So what do I mean by parents not being ready to be parent, to be a caregiver, to be a protector, a nurturer? Someone who is not processed their own wounds, personal traumas, their own unconscious or subconscious beliefs that are not properly assessed, someone who has not made peace with some things that should be made peace with, be it a huge wound or a loss or suffering, some kind of gaps in identity, or not having a solid set of values, emotionally especially, to be available, to be prepared, to be open and ready to take care of another person in a healthy, proper way. Someone who has not lived their own dreams, someone who has not made peace with things that they have not done or they could not do, dreams that they have not pursued, beliefs that they have not worked through and questioned and tested, and whether they would work for them and whether they would work for their own offsprings. They have worked on their own boundaries, very important thing. They have not processed or taken care of things that they regret, and most importantly, emotional wounds, trauma, abandonment, fear issues, trust issues, a parent who has not really been there for them. Even they are physically there but not emotionally there. Emotionally very little available, or even if they are available, it's very unpredictable, and the climate is quite shaky and filled with a lot of uncertainty. Someone who is not even physically there, someone who is physically there, emotionally not there, but also on top of it being actually verbally abusive. They may not hit them, but they may be abusive verbally, putting them down, instilling fear, instilling doubt, creating anxiety, worries and questioning, self-doubt, shaming them for everything, provoking guilty unnecessarily. There are places where guilt is necessary. It's a good conscience mechanism. But then there are other times where people are used to abuse this concept of guilt. So making the child somehow responsible for something bad happened to them or somebody else. It's not the burden of the child to bear, but then the child is put in that place. Shaming. So someone very wise told, I don't recall who that is. So guilt is to say that you did something wrong, even though you may or may not have really been guilty, but it is to say that you have done something wrong. Shaming, on the other hand, is even more damaging, because it says you are wrong, that your whole existence, you as an individual, your existence, your presence itself is a problem. You are wrong, is shaming. So these two are very prevalent. And why are they like that? Because parents who are supposed to have processed all these things, to be aware of all these things, to have taken care of their own childhood wounds, traumas, fears, this guilt and shaming thing which was unnecessarily put on them, wherever it was not necessary, healing has done, forgiven people who they should be forgiven and let go of. Forgiving in the sense you are letting them go, letting whoever has hurt you go. Not that what they did is right or acceptable, but you are letting them go for your own peace. Okay, so forgiving people, to be able to let go, to not be holding on to, be it people, events, situations, bitterness, betrayals of some kind, shaming of some kind, beliefs that are very, very limited, very restrictive, very rigid, very takes away the ability to live a full life. That kind of restrictive beliefs, negative beliefs about their own self, negative beliefs about world and others, anything that's very strongly held needs to be worked on, and all that before somebody becomes a parent. But vast majority of them barely even work on themselves, but they just keep on making babies. What happens is, this same parents who are afraid of life on some level, insecure in themselves, insecure in themselves, living in fear, carrying all these unhealed wounds and constantly living to please other people. I want to get along with certain groups. I want to be known for certain things and reputation and status. I want to be accepted by certain group. I want to be looked upon by somebody. I have my own issues that I have not processed, and then I become a parent. And a lot of people do that because they try to live through their children, which is a very unfortunate thing. That itself is toxic. These people, they encroach into the learning process and lives of their own children. They themselves have not learned what it means to have healthy boundaries, so they do not respect or appreciate or even acknowledge the same things in their own children. Bodily boundaries or otherwise. Then the emotional availability. They are not emotionally available because they are still in their own, living in their own story, which was long ago wounded. They did not even work on it. So they have no time to be emotionally available for the child or children. So they are living in a world where they have not fully aware of who they are in the first place. So emotions, except for living in the fear and insecurity and doubt and anger and bitterness, they do not even know how to care and love genuinely themselves, let alone themselves, and then they don't have any idea how to do it for children. And another common thing I've noticed, out of that fear, they encroach into the learning space of their own children, growing stages of their own children. So what they do is, they have learned from their own parents and grandparents and surrounding. The common culture has been so common that they have learned to live in fear, to live in a certain tried and tested formula, cookie cutter formulas, and sit there, do it, do whatever everybody is doing, just keep going and do not even do anything different, do not even do anything that requires heart and risk taking and love and all those real passion for life and themselves and all that zest for life. So just keep going and doing things robotically because it has been tried and tested by a lot of people. It works for a lot of people and it works for the system. So let's just keep going blindly. Let's not even work on ourselves. Like, why is it necessary? There is a formula that works for everybody. So we will go with that formula. So they are in loveless marriages. They don't even love or like themselves. They don't even appreciate or like or love something really in a good healthy way, except for some kind of people pleasing or ego stroking. They don't have their own genuine interests in anything, real passion for anything. and they go and do this cookie cutter way of living life, marriages, having babies, and all these jobs and money and blah blah blah. And because that something has worked out in the sense it has been safe enough, certain enough for them that they do not have to take much of a risk or go out of their way to do something new or challenge the system, established system. So out of this kind of fearful living, they think it is safe. It is fear. Just like I've mentioned about the perils of comfort zone in the other video, this is one of those kinds. So you stay too much in a comfort zone, it's a prison. It's a prison of fear. It's nothing else. So they live in this fear, the cookie cutter formulas, and because they are so terrified of their own, the little parts of uncertainty, they keep controlling their children. They have children to control and manage their lives. So sad. So they keep interrupting the learning and growing process of children, especially emotionally, because they themselves are emotionally weak and immature and not grown up. Just for the physical growth, every other area of their lives are totally fallen apart. But they really don't pay any attention. So the children are growing, they make mistakes, they fall down, they make wrong choices, they make wrong friends, they make some mistakes, they make some habits that are not very good. They are bound to fail because they are growing. That's the whole point. But they want to interrupt. They want to play God. They want to come and protect them from making mistakes or falling down or getting hurt or making mistakes, that they keep interrupting their own learning process. They prevent them from having their own life experiences. In a sense, they are breeding the generations and generations of same kind of cookie cutter, fear-loving prison people, prison life. For the sake of a fake sense of comfort or safety or a little bit of certainty, they start controlling so much that they rob their own children of their own experiences. They refuse to see the point that their children are different from them. They may be their children, but they can never see the point that children are not extensions of themselves. Children are separate and different from them, and that's okay. They just cannot make peace with that basic point. I've seen this so many parents. They want them to be exactly like them, or they want to live through the children, that they control and manage their life and rob them of their own experiences, both good or bad. They are encroaching onto every single place which is important for the child's healthy emotional mental growth, and they just keep on interrupting it or encroaching it, and they steal all these experiences that enrich them and develop their own personality actually, which is really good. That's the true meaning of growth. That's the true meaning of process of life, growing up. And they stall it. They either totally stunt it and stall it by fully suffocating them, or they manage and control so much that they rob them of certain important experiences that help, that enrich their own lives, emotional, mental, psychological belief systems, who they are, developing a sense of personality and self. All of this comes from their own insecurity, their own lack of identity, their own lack of acceptance for who they are and self-affection. And they control them like robots and rob them of their experiences. Especially difficult and tough and challenging experiences. They protect them and keep them in the box of safety so much that they take away their own lives. So unfortunate. I've seen so many parents try to do it. And I was dealing with children for a while in my life, and I've seen mothers use me. The children trust me. They like me. They see me as a real adult figure that feels safe, solid, and they come to me in times of trouble. They show their vulnerability to me. without any fear, because if they go to their parents and show vulnerability and judgment, they get a long lecture. Instead of just letting them be who they are, instead of letting the children be who they are, parents end up taking a huge lecture, even if it is a small 4 or 5 year old children, an LKG child. They start lecturing them about what is this, what is that, what is wrong, what is right, and all this, instead of just letting the child be vulnerable, sensitive, broken, emotional for a moment, sad, hurt. It's okay, but they cannot. So the children somehow see that I am more of an emotionally available person, and they came to me in my locality and they trust me. And noticing this, those mothers, they contacted me claiming, why don't you say XYZ to my child? Seems like they have been very friendly with you. Seems like they have connected well with you. They trust you. Okay, they trust your company. So why don't you tell them XYZ? Whatever it is the mother was trying to tell, the parent was trying to teach them and put in their head. They are trying to use me as a mouthpiece for their beliefs. By doing that, you are robbing the child of their own personal experiences, their own learning lessons from which they have to come to conclusions on their own. You support them. You do not encroach them. They just do not understand it. It opened my eyes how much of a boundary breaching is happening, how much of stealing their own experiences is happening from their own caregivers. It shouldn't be that way. You should let them be. They are hurt. Don't go lecture them about what caused them the hurt and why is this, why is that. Just let them be. They can't. And I've seen it so many times in so many people in so many ways. This is just one example. And this example is for 4 or 5 year old child, LKG or something. And if that is happening to an LKG child, that's my first experience actually in such a close proximity as to what's happening from the parenting side. And imagine that happens more commonly actually. So by stopping and preventing and being barricading in every possible way, you say it's protection as a parent. It's not. You are robbing them of their experiences, which will shape them. The lessons that they are supposed to learn from life are their own, not yours. You are supposed to learn your own lessons, which you did not. Now you don't get to participate in their own lessons. It's their job, it's their life. Let them live. You be the support system. They just cannot understand. They have to encroach upon every single personal area of their life. And after they grow up and get married also, they keep interrupting and encroaching into their own personal private lives. That's toxic. That's toxic. They want children to be around them, to keep depending on them for decisions and finances and other things, and they want them to be under them. They just cannot handle a child even after growing into an adult, even after they move into 40s and 50s. They just cannot let go of their own children so they can live their own lives. They encroach into the private spaces and personal lives, important decisions that they should be making on their own or with their own families. And this is toxic. It is in no way healthy, and I see how common it is, and it is so wrong. So this is one thing I wanted to talk about, and why I wanted to point out it is toxic. There is no other word for it. It's heavily dysfunctional. The lack of boundaries, the stealing of experiences, the inability to separate child from ourselves, from the parent, and let them grow, let them live their own lives, take their own decisions, become their own person. If this inability is there, it means you are not worthy to be parent. You have not grown enough to be a parent in the first place. There is a lot that you need to work on before you go on to have children and mess up with their lives. It's unfair. It's unfair. Maybe your parents did that to you. Doesn't mean you got to keep repeating the same thing. you can learn your lessons and do things differently. So this is something I wanted to talk about today because it is so common and this is toxic. Okay, you have to see it and accept it for what it is.